I took the night shift at the Marrow Creek post office because it was the only job that called me back. It wasn't like I had a lot of choices. I'd just moved back into town to take care of my mother, and between her appointments and the steady decline of everything, I needed something that wasn't going to ask much from me. Something simple, quiet, reliable. They told me the daytime staff was full and that the night shift only needed someone to sort a few late deliveries. No customer service, no phones, no lines, just me, the mail, and the hum of an old federal building falling apart at the seams. Honestly, it sounded perfect. I hadn't been inside the building since I was a kid. Back then it looked tall and sterile, always too cold and too bright, like grown-up places were supposed to be. But when I pulled up that night, the place looked different. Smaller, squat and gray, like a forgotten cinder block jammed between a condemned laundromat and a bakery that hadn't sold bread in a decade. The brickwork looked darker than I remembered. The windows, too. The kind of place you walk into, but maybe don't walk out of. The lot was empty, except for a rusted-out delivery van and a single street lamp stuttering outside the glass front doors. The buzzer didn't work when I pressed it, which didn't surprise me. I used the key they'd given me during onboarding and let myself in, the door dragging with a reluctant squeal before slamming shut behind me. The air inside tasted old, stale ink, dust, and something faintly sour that I couldn't place. I hit the switch by the entrance, and the overheads buzzed to life, hesitating like they were thinking it over before clicking on one by one. Pale yellow lights spilled across rows of steel counters, indented mail bins, some still half full. The entire front lobby looked like someone had meant to clean it a long time ago and never got around to it. Boxes leaned in uneven stacks against the far wall. The floor creaked under my shoes, and behind the counter, at the very edge of the old mail scale, was a perfectly folded square of white paper. I hesitated before reaching for it. It had my name on it. Just Elise, nothing else. The handwriting was blocky, neat. Government handwriting, I thought. Inside was a short list. Elise, welcome to your first night. A few things you'll need to keep in mind while you're here. We've had issues during the night shift before, so follow these rules exactly. Don't ask questions. Just follow the rules. Your shift runs from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. Do not leave early. Good luck. 1. If the lobby lights flicker more than twice, check the security camera feed. 2. The red bin marked dead mail must be emptied before 3 a.m. 3. If you hear footsteps on the roof, lock the sorting room door. 4. If a letter appears addressed to you, place it in box 12 and burn it after your shift. 5. Never open the packages. 6. If the buzzer sounds and no one is at the front door, your shift has ended early. Leave the building immediately. Signed by Mr. Black. I read it once, then again, and a third time after that. It didn't feel like a joke, but I had no idea how else to take it. Still, I figured this had to be some kind of weird security checklist. Internal protocols. Maybe even hazing. It wasn't the first government job I'd applied for, and I'd worked for worse. I pulled out my phone, snapped a quick photo of the page, and slipped the original into my back pocket just in case. Then I clocked in, flipped open the logbook, and got to work. The first hour passed without anything strange. I kept myself busy, which helped. There were trays of new mail to sort and a few overnight parcels stacked against the back wall, none of them marked urgent. I started with the envelopes first, simple stuff. Muscle memory from my temp job back in Tucson kicked in fast. The building was too quiet. No music, no HVAC hum, no distant voices from behind a partition, just the soft rustle of paper and the occasional shuffle of my own steps. Every time I moved a bin, the wheels echoed like someone following me. I told myself it was just the acoustics. Old floors, hollow spaces. Places like this kept their own rhythm after dark. I found the sorting room without trouble. The light inside flickered when I flipped the switch, but it stayed on. It smelled like forgotten coffee and something stale, like toner or old receipts. The walls were covered in laminated charts and dusty binders. There was a table pushed against the far wall, covered in unopened supply boxes and a layer of grime. I worked in silence. Every so often, I'd glance up at the ancient clock bolted to the cinder block wall, its second hand jerking along like it didn't quite believe in time anymore. At some point, I stopped checking it. I knew what I needed to do. and the shift felt long enough already. Then the lobby lights flickered. Once, twice, 3 times. I froze. The buzz in my ears got louder. Not from sound, just from the kind of silence that feels alive, like something waiting to move. I stood there for a moment, one hand still holding a padded envelope, the other clenched at my side. Rule 1. If the lobby lights flicker more than twice, check the security camera feed. The system was in the back hallway near the old manager's office, behind a sliding plastic cover that clicked when I opened it. The screen was dusty, and the monitor looked like it hadn't been replaced since before I was born. I hit the power button. It clicked on with a faint hum and static fizz. 4 channels: front lobby, rear hallway, sorting room, exterior parking lot. I clicked through. The lobby looked empty. The street lamp outside sputtered like it was still trying to decide whether to die. Nothing moved. The hallway feed was normal, just the vending machine and the back doors. The sorting room camera gave me a brief, grainy glimpse of myself standing near the desk. Then the last channel. The screen flicked, and there it was, a figure, standing just inside the front glass doors, perfectly still, not pressed against the glass, not reaching, just inside, like it had been let in. I squinted, leaned closer. It wore a black coat, long and heavy-looking, and no hat. I couldn't make out the face. There was something wrong with the way the light hit it. Or maybe it wasn't lit at all. Just a blur where the face should have been. Then it moved. It raised one hand and waved. Just a slow, casual wave. Like it knew me, like it was waiting. I didn't move at all. Just stared until my stomach twisted and the back of my neck prickled with cold. Then I reached forward and turned the monitor off. The lights didn't flicker again. But I didn't go back to the front lobby either. Instead, I stayed in the sorting room, hands a little less steady than they were before, and told myself this was some weird joke. Maybe the cameras were glitching. Maybe someone hacked into the system, or it was all part of some ridiculous onboarding prank they forgot to warn me about. But deep down, I knew better. That thing had waved at me, and it wasn't smiling. By the time I started breathing normally again, it was already after 2. I stayed in the sorting room longer than I probably needed to. I kept rechecking trays I'd already organized, pretending to triple confirm delivery zones even though I'd memorized them an hour ago. I just didn't want to step back into the lobby. Not after what I saw on that monitor, or thought I saw. I couldn't decide which was worse. That's when I remembered Rule 2. The red bin, marked Dead Mail, must be emptied before 3 a.m. I checked the clock, 2:46 a.m. Close enough. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped into the rear hallway. It felt colder back there, like the air had stopped moving. I passed a long-forgotten broom closet and an old corkboard with curling memos pinned to it, some so sun-faded I couldn't read the ink. The bin wasn't where I expected it. I checked behind the copy machines. Under the main counter. Nothing. Then I saw it, shoved halfway beneath a busted table near the end of the hallway. The table itself was warped, probably from water damage, and the bin looked like it had been wedged under there for years. I had to kneel and drag it out by the handle, which groaned with the effort. It was heavier than it looked. Bright red, just like the rules said. The kind of red you use when you want people to stay away. At first I thought it was just shredded paper. That made sense. Letters that never found a home, forms returned with no forwarding address, that kind of thing. But when I looked closer I noticed the scraps weren't consistent. Some had been ripped by hand, others looked chewed. Some were stained. And at the bottom, half crushed, barely visible, I saw something else. A child's drawing. Just a piece of notebook paper, folded once and water wrinkled, with a few stick figures drawn in bright crayon. Yellow sun in the corner. 2 people holding hands. One of the figures had a red X where the face should have been. Just a giant red X that bled through the page. I didn't stare at it for long. I wheeled the bin down the back hall toward the metal chute marked Waste Paper Disposal. The sticker was peeling, and the metal looked like it hadn't been cleaned since the 80s. I pulled open the latch and dumped the bin's contents in without thinking. The papers slid out in clumps, some catching on the edge before tumbling down into the dark. Then I heard it. A soft thump. Not like paper hitting the bottom of a bin, but like something catching itself. Like a hand stopping its fall. I let the chute slam shut. The hallway felt tighter than before. like the walls had leaned in. My chest was heavy, and the back of my hoodie stuck to my neck even though it was still cold. I didn't look back. I didn't check to see if anything had stayed behind. I just rolled the empty bin to the side, left it there, and walked back toward the front counter like nothing had happened. But something had. Something small, something easy to miss. It had been quiet all night. And now, it wasn't. By the time I got back to the front counter, the building felt colder. Not like the AC had kicked on or anything, it was more like the heat had been pulled out of the air. My breath didn't fog, but my skin prickled, and I kept rubbing my hands together even though they weren't actually numb. I pulled my hoodie tighter around me and checked the time, 3:15 a.m. The hardest part of the shift was supposed to be over. Karen had mentioned that during onboarding, most of the sorting happens between 10 and 2, and after that it's just cleanup and prep for the morning team. Easy hours, quiet ones. Except now the quiet didn't feel peaceful, it felt watched. I leaned on the front desk and tried to focus. Maybe I'd bring the trash out early. Maybe double-check the inbound manifest. I just needed to stay busy. That's what I kept telling myself. Then the roof creaked. Just once at first. A long, slow groan above my head like the building was settling. Then another. And another. Not groans this time. Steps. Heavy and careful, like someone walking across the flat roof in deliberate strides. I counted 3 before I moved. Rule 3. If you hear footsteps on the roof, lock the sorting room door. I didn't stop to think. I grabbed the keys from the hook and rushed down the hallway, the sound of movement above me keeping pace. I reached the sorting room, shut the door behind me, and threw the bolt fast. The door clicked into place. Then I pressed my back to it and listened. Whoever, or whatever, was up there didn't seem in a hurry. The footsteps were slow, spaced out, each one landing with weight, not scraping, not running, just walking, back and forth, above my head. It went on for 5 minutes, maybe longer. I just stayed against the wall, trying to breathe quieter than I was, heart pounding too hard to ignore. Eventually, the footsteps faded. They didn't trail off like someone climbing down. They just stopped. That was almost worse. I waited 10 more minutes before I opened the door. The hallway was empty. The lights still buzzed overhead, same as before. No movement, no sound. I stepped back into the front room, and that's when I saw it. An envelope. Sitting right on top of the mail tray I'd finished sorting earlier. It hadn't been there before. There was no stamp, no return address, no barcode, postmark, nothing. Just a name. Mine. Written in handwriting I recognized immediately. My mother's. I didn't pick it up, not right away. I just stared at it, my whole body stiff like I'd forget how to move if I even blinked. I hadn't seen her handwriting in months, not since before she started losing coordination, not since the strokes made it hard for her to even hold a pen. She couldn't write. Not anymore. And yet, there it was. Her neat cursive letters on a plain envelope, addressed to me with a soft curl at the bottom of the E that she always used when she signed cards. I wanted to open it. Every instinct told me to tear it open and read whatever was inside. Maybe it was a note she'd written and left behind before things got worse. Maybe I'd missed it during the move. But Rule 4 screamed louder. If a letter appears addressed to you, place it in box 12 and burn it after your shift. I made myself pick it up, careful not to turn it over. It was warm in my hand, like it had come straight from someone's pocket. I didn't look at it again. I took it to the back hallway, found box 12 near the rear loading bay, half buried behind a stack of unused bins, and shoved the envelope inside without a word. I told myself I'd burn it after my shift, that I'd do what the list said. But even as I shut the lid, I couldn't stop thinking. My mother couldn't write, so who had? The next hour passed like slow poison. Every time the wind shifted outside, I tensed. Every time the old ductwork creaked, I looked up. There wasn't anything left to sort, not really. I'd already logged and separated everything that had come in before midnight, and the manifest was done. But I couldn't sit still, couldn't relax. Not after the footsteps. Not after that letter. I kept thinking about the way it felt in my hand, like it had been held only moments before. I hadn't gone back to check on it. I told myself I'd burn it when the shift ended. I told myself I was following the rules. But that didn't stop the image from creeping into my mind over and over. The soft curve of my mother's handwriting, the little swirl at the end of my name. She hadn't been able to write in over 4 months, which meant someone else had done it. Or something else. The back hallway lights flickered, not the same pattern as the lobby had earlier. This was different. A single dim blink, then a low electrical hum. Then came the knock. Not loud, just one sharp rap against the rear door. I froze. No deliveries were scheduled. Incoming parcels arrived in bulk earlier in the evening, and the few late ones were routed through internal boxes. No drop-offs. No couriers. I crossed the hallway slowly, footsteps silent on the worn linoleum. When I reached the back door, I paused and leaned in just enough to peek through the warped metal peephole. A man stood outside. Tall, hooded, not moving. He held a package, just one, cradled against his chest like it was fragile. His head was angled slightly down, so I couldn't see much of his face, just the faintest hint of skin beneath the edge of the hood. He wasn't aggressive. He didn't pound on the door again or try the handle. He just waited. I should have ignored him. I knew I should have. But something about the stillness, something about the way he stood there, motionless in the dark, it made it feel like if I didn't act, he would. And that whatever he chose to do next would be worse than anything I imagined. So I unlocked the deadbolt. Just enough to crack the door open. "Thanks," I said, reaching for the package. My voice sounded small, almost childish, like I wasn't convinced I was the one speaking. He handed it over without a word. Didn't nod, didn't move. And then he turned and walked back into the dark like he belonged to it. I locked the door behind him. Tight, top and bottom. The package was heavier than it should have been. About the size of a shoebox, maybe a little larger. Cardboard, no logos, no obvious damage, no noise inside. But the weight of it didn't match its size. It felt wrong in my hands, dense in a way that made my wrist ache, like the mass was off-center, like it was shifting ever so slightly. Holding it made my fingers stiffen. I looked at the label. It had an address I didn't recognize. No return, no zip code, and no name. Just a black line where the recipient should have been. Everything in me screamed to open it. Not because I wanted to know what was inside, but because something about the not knowing felt unbearable. Like the longer I held it, the more it was pressing into me, crawling under my skin. But Rule 5 came back like a slap to the face. Never open the packages. I didn't hesitate this time. I carried it to the far corner of the sorting room, where the designated cabinet was bolted to the wall. The one marked, "Hold, Unresolved." The lock was old, but worked. I twisted the key and yanked the door open with my elbow. The shelf inside was empty, except for one other package, wrapped in brown paper, soaked through at one end. I slid the new parcel in beside it, locked the door, walked away. I didn't look back, I didn't ask questions. But as I sat at the front desk, watching the minute hand crawl towards 6, I couldn't stop thinking about what might have been inside, and why he brought it to me. By 5:30, I was watching the clock like it might disappear. The building felt different again, not colder, heavier, like the air had thickened, like gravity had shifted and was pushing down on me harder than it had all night. Every time I turned a corner or stepped into a new room, I half expected to see something waiting for me. That hooded man, the figure from the camera, something else. The silence wasn't calm anymore. It had weight. It pressed on my chest and made my steps slower. Even the lights seemed dimmer, like they were being filtered through something I couldn't see. I sat at the front desk, staring at the wall clock, jacket on and keys in hand, counting the minutes until 6. Then the buzzer sounded. I jumped hard enough to knock a stack of papers onto the floor. No one was scheduled to arrive. No pickups, no deliveries, no early crew. No one comes in until after sunrise. I stood slowly, heart hammering. The buzzer sounded again, short, sharp. I moved to the front window. At first, I didn't see anything. The glass was streaked and fogged a little near the edges, and the street lamp outside had finally given up. Everything beyond the door looked like a half-lit smear of dark gray. I stepped closer, still nothing. No van, no footsteps in the snow, no silhouette. The entryway was empty, but I felt it. Something just beyond the frame, just out of sight. Like the air between the glass and the parking lot was hiding something alive. I didn't wait for a third buzz. Rule 6. If the buzzer sounds and no one is at the front door, Your shift has ended early. Leave the building immediately." I didn't care if it was 5:39 or 5:49. I didn't care if the schedule said otherwise. Slung my bag over my shoulder and hit the back hallway at a run. As I passed the sorting room, I heard something shift inside the cabinet. I didn't stop. I didn't want to know. When I reached the side door, I fumbled with the lock, fingers clumsy, vision blurring. The handle finally gave way, and I shoved the door open with my shoulder. The moment I crossed the threshold, the pressure let up, just a little. The cold outside was real now, familiar. Sharp and clean, like a slap to the face. My boots hit the pavement, and I didn't stop moving until I'd made it to my car, keys already out, hands shaking as I unlocked the driver's door. I looked back once, just once. The building stood in perfect stillness. No figures in the window, no shadows by the door, but the glass. The glass. It shimmered just for a second, like it had exhaled, like something had followed me all the way to the edge and let me go. I didn't go back the next night. The uniform shirt's still on my bedroom floor, right next to the letter, the one in my mother's handwriting. I didn't burn it. I never did. And lately, I've been thinking about opening it, because it speaks to me, in my own voice, calling me back to the post office.